Okay, so are you ready to like really get into generative AI, not just like the basic stuff that everyone's already talking about? Like, we've got some research here. This goes way deeper.
Yeah, we'll be looking at how this tech actually works, like under the hood,
Yeah.
and more importantly, what it means for you, even if you're not a coder or a data scientist.
Right. Before we get too far, I think we should start with like the most basic question. What is generative AI?
I think that's a great place to start. It's a type of artificial intelligence that, well, it goes beyond just analyzing data. It can create new content, think poems or code, music, photorealistic pictures, almost anything you can imagine.
So it's not just recognizing patterns, but it's using those patterns to like build new stuff.
Right. It's like, the difference between a student who can like ace a multiple choice test about art history and a student who can paint a brand new masterpiece, in the style of Van Gogh?
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes a lot more sense. But how does it actually work? Is it just magic?
Well, it might feel like magic, but it's actually super complex. It's like
Hmm.
this. Companies like OpenAI and Google are building these sophisticated engines. They're called large language models, or LLMs.
LLMs. Got it.
Yeah. And these LLMs are trained on massive amounts of data, like truly massive. And then they learn to generate new content based on all the patterns they've identified.
So these companies are like the engine manufacturers, but what about the people who use the engines?
Exactly. Exactly. There are different levels of access and application.
Mm.
Businesses can integrate these LLMs into their products, kind of like building a car factory around an engine. Then you have developers.
Hmm.
They can use tools like APIs to build custom applications, like creating a unique car from scratch.
Okay, so APIs are like specialized connectors.
Exactly.
Okay, and where do everyday users like me fit into all of this?
Well, that's where tools like ChatGPT and Daily come in. You don't need to know how to build an engine or a car. You just get to enjoy driving it, so to speak. These are the user-friendly interfaces. They harness the power of the LLM to create content, translate languages, write different kinds of creative text formats.
So it's like accessing all this incredible AI power without needing a degree in computer science.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And that's why it's becoming such a big deal. It's opening up AI to a much wider audience.
that makes sense. So we've got these LLMs as the core brains, and then different ways to access their power, from like full-on integration to simple user interfaces. Let's talk about some specific applications. What are some of the big names in the generative AI world?
Well, in the realm of text generation, you've got ChatGPT. It uses the GPT LLM to create all sorts of written content. Imagine having a writing assistant that can help you draft emails, write articles, even generate code. There are also tools like GitHub Copilot, which uses GPT to suggest code and help developers write more efficiently.
Wow, that's amazing. So it's not just about creating fun content like poems or scripts. It's got real practical applications. What about visuals? Can AI create images as well?
Absolutely. You've probably heard of Midjourney, DALL-E, and Stable Diffusion. These are text-to-image models where you type in a description and the AI will generate a corresponding image.
So you can literally say like, paint me a picture of a cat riding a unicorn through a field of rainbows, and you would actually do it.
Pretty much. And it's not just for fun either. Companies are using this for marketing campaigns, movie storyboards, even fashion design.
That's incredible. But I have to admit, all this talk about AI generating content makes me wonder about the impact on jobs. What happens to artists and writers if AI can, do their jobs?
That's a really valid concern. But I think it's more nuanced than AI just, taking over jobs. Remember, AI is a tool. It can be used to help humans, not necessarily replace them. AI can handle the repetitive, time-consuming tasks, freeing up humans to focus on the more creative, strategic aspects of their work.
So it's more about collaboration than competition.
Exactly.
Yeah.
For example, an artist could use AI to generate initial concepts or color palettes and then use their own skills and creativity to refine those ideas into a final piece. It's about using AI to, enhance what humans do best.
That's a much more optimistic way to look at it. So it's not about like fearing AI, but learning to work with it, to leverage its strengths while still valuing our own unique human abilities.
Precisely. And let's not forget that new jobs and opportunities will likely emerge as this technology evolves. Think about the need for AI trainers or prompt engineers, experts who can bridge the gap between humans and AI. It's a constantly shifting landscape.
That's a really good point. It's not just about replacing existing jobs, but also creating entirely new fields and specializations, ones that we haven't even thought of yet.
Right, and this brings up another type of generative AI that's less about creating flashy images or text. It's equally impactful. Variational autoencoders, or VAEs.
VAEs. Those sound a bit more technical. What do they do?
Think of VAEs as um, AI detectives. They excel at finding anomalies, those odd one out data points that might, signal something unusual. They're incredibly useful for fraud detection, spotting manufacturing defects, or even identifying potential cybersecurity threats.
So they're like those super sleuths who can spot the tiny detail that everyone else misses. That's fascinating.
Exactly. Companies like Uber use VAEs to detect fraudulent accounts, and manufacturers use them to identify defects in products before they reach consumers. It's all about finding those subtle discrepancies that might indicate a problem.
Okay, my mind is officially blown. So we've covered like what generative AI is, how it works at a high level, and some of the key applications, but what about the future? What can we expect to see in the next few years?
Well, in the short term, expect generative AI to become even more integrated into our lives. Think even more realistic video games and characters, virtual assistants that feel like real conversations, and AI optimizing everything, from energy grids to traffic flow.
So AI is going to be everywhere. That's both exciting and a little intimidating. What about long term? Where could all of this be heading?
Things get even more interesting when you look further out. Imagine AI helping design buildings, create new materials, and even write movie scripts. It has the potential to democratize creativity, making it possible for anyone to generate high-quality content, regardless of their technical skills.
That sounds amazing, but also a little scary. What about the potential downsides? What should we be cautious of as this technology keeps advancing?
Well, it's important to remember that AI is a tool. And, like any tool, it can be used for good or bad. We need to be mindful of how it's developed and deployed and make sure it benefits humanity as a whole.
So it's not just about the technology itself, but about the human choices behind it.
Exactly. We need to have open discussions about the ethical implications of AI and ensure it's used responsibly. We also need to be critical thinkers. Don't blindly trust everything an AI generates. Always apply your own judgment and discernment.
That's a great point. So before we move on to the next section, what's one key takeaway you want our listener to remember about generative AI?
I'd say approach it with both curiosity and a critical eye. It's a powerful tool with incredible potential, but it's up to us to shape how it's used and what kind of future we create with it.
Well said. Now, I've been hearing a lot of buzz about these things called JANs. What are those all about?
GANs, or generative adversarial networks, are a fascinating type of generative AI model. They actually pit two AI algorithms against each other. One generates content, the other judges its realism. Think of it like an AI art forgery competition.
So one AI is trying to create a convincing fake, while the other is trying to spot the forgery.
Exactly. And through this constant back and forth, both AIs get better and better. The generator becomes more skilled at creating realistic content, and the discriminator becomes more adept at identifying fakes.
That's a pretty clever approach. What are some real-world applications of JANs?
Oh, there are tons. Audi uses GANs for wheel design inspiration. They trained a GAN on images of car wheels, and it generated new, innovative designs. Beko, a European appliance brand, used GANs to create stunning visuals for a sustainability film.
So JANs can be used for both practical and artistic purposes. That's incredible.
Absolutely. And here's the really interesting part. The same GAN model can be used for wildly different applications. For example, a GAN trained on financial transactions could be used for fraud detection, while a GAN trained on images could be used for creating art or special effects.
Wow, that's amazing. So we've talked about different types of generative AI models like LLMs and JANs and how they work, but are there specific tools or platforms people are using to access this technology, besides the ones you mentioned earlier like ChatGPT and DALL-E?
Definitely. One trend we're seeing is the rise of domain-specific models and fine-tuning. Companies are creating models specifically for certain industries like retail, finance, and healthcare.
So instead of like a one-size-fits-all approach, we're seeing more specialized AI models.
Exactly. This leads to even better results because the models are trained on data that's relevant to a specific field. And you can even fine-tune existing models with your own data, which is great for businesses that want to create AI solutions tailored to their specific needs.
That makes sense. So let's shift gears a bit and talk about the evolution of generative AI. How has this technology changed over time?
Well, remember those early digital cameras? Bulky, low resolution. Well, generative AI has gone through a similar evolution. Early tools were clunky and required a lot of technical expertise. But now we're seeing more user-friendly platforms and apps. They're transforming creative industries and making high-quality content production accessible to more people.
So it's becoming more democratized. That's pretty exciting.
Exactly. And one of the key drivers of this democratization is the rise of LLMs and APIs, which we touched on earlier.
Okay, let's break that down a bit more. What exactly are LLMs and APIs, and how are they making AI more accessible?
Well, remember those engines we talked about? The LLMs, or large language models, are the brains behind many generative AI applications. They're vast neural networks trained on massive amounts of data. And APIs, or application programming interfaces, are like specialized connectors that allow developers to easily integrate LLMs into their own products and services.
So APIs make it easier to tap into the power of those LLMs without needing to build everything from scratch.
Exactly. It's like having a restaurant kitchen, the
Yeah.
LLM, and a waiter, the API, who brings you the delicious food. You get to enjoy the results without having to know all the complexities of cooking.
I love that analogy. So APIs are basically making the power of generative AI more accessible to developers, which in turn leads to more innovative applications and tools for everyone.
That's right. And this leads to another exciting trend, the rise of AI agents.
AI agents, what are those?
They go beyond simple chatbots. They can actually perform tasks and achieve goals. Imagine having an AI agent that monitors competitor pricing, analyzes data, and makes recommendations. It's like having a super efficient assistant working tirelessly behind the scenes.
That sounds incredibly useful. Like having a whole team of experts working for you, 24/7. What about the future of computer use in general? How will generative AI change the way we interact with computers?
Imagine this. You're working on a complex task, maybe creating a purchase order or analyzing sales data. You can simply ask your AI to take over.
Wait, like verbally instruct the AI to do those things for me?
Exactly. And it goes beyond just voice commands. The AI would actually see your screen, understand the context of your work, and then take control of your mouse and keyboard to complete the task.
So it's like having an AI coworker who can handle the tedious stuff, freeing you up for more strategic thinking.
Precisely. This is still in its early stages, but companies are already developing AI models that can use software, especially web browsers, just like humans do.
That sounds incredible. But it also raises some interesting questions. What about security? Can we trust AI to have that level of control over our computers? What if something goes wrong?
That's a valid concern, and it's something developers are actively addressing. Security and privacy are paramount, and any AI system that interacts with personal data or sensitive information needs to be designed with robust safeguards.
That makes sense. What about the impact on jobs? If AI can automate so many tasks, will it lead to widespread job displacement?
It's a question that comes up often, and it's important to address it thoughtfully. While it's true that some jobs will inevitably be automated, AI is also creating new opportunities. Think about the roles that will emerge as AI becomes more integrated into our lives.
So it's more about a shift in the job market than like mass unemployment.
Exactly. And history has shown that technological advancements often lead to new industries and job creation. The key is to embrace these changes and adapt our skills accordingly.
That's a hopeful perspective. Now, as we wrap up part one of this deep dive, I want to touch on a topic that's been generating a lot of buzz. Virtual shopping assistants. What are those, and how are they changing the retail experience?
Virtual shopping assistants are AI-powered tools that provide personalized assistance to shoppers. Think of it like having a knowledgeable salesperson available 24/7 to answer your questions and help you find the perfect product.
So it's like having a personal shopper in your pocket.
Exactly. And they're becoming increasingly sophisticated. They're using natural language processing and machine learning to understand your needs and preferences.
That's pretty impressive. What are some of the benefits of using virtual shopping assistants?
Well, for shoppers, they provide a more convenient and personalized shopping experience. You can get answers to your questions quickly and easily without having to wait for a human representative. And for retailers, virtual shopping assistants can help increase sales and customer satisfaction. They can provide 24/7 support, answer frequently asked questions, and even make personalized product recommendations.
So it's a win-win for both shoppers and retailers.
Exactly. And this is just one example of how generative AI is transforming the retail industry. We're also seeing AI being used for things like hyper-personalization, virtual try-on, and supply chain optimization.
This is all incredibly fascinating, but it's a lot to take in. Before we move on to part two, is there one key takeaway you want our listener to remember about the impact of generative AI on retail?
I'd say the most important thing is that generative AI is empowering retailers to create more personalized and engaging shopping experiences. It's about using AI to enhance the human touch, not replace it.
Well said. Now, in part two, we'll delve deeper into some of the specific use cases and technologies driving this transformation. Stay tuned.
Welcome back. So, are you ready to keep going with how generative AI is like reshaping retail?
Oh, absolutely. I'm fascinated by all this. Last time we were talking about those AI-powered virtual shopping assistants, but you mentioned some other really cool developments like hyper-personalization. What does that even mean in the retail world?
Okay, so imagine walking into a store, right? It could be a physical store or even online. And everything, literally everything you see is tailored to your individual tastes, style, even like your current mood. That's the power of hyper-personalization.
That sounds amazing, like every shopper's dream, right? But how is AI actually making that a reality?
It all boils down to data. AI algorithms can analyze huge amounts of information about you, like past purchases, browsing history, your social media activity, even things like product reviews you've written or, liked online. And it uses all that data to create a unique shopping experience just for you.
So it's not just about like recommending products I might like, but like creating an entire shopping journey that's tailored to me.
Exactly. Think personalized product recommendations, targeted promotions that actually resonate with your interests, even customized content that, speaks to your specific needs or style preferences.
Yeah.
It's all about creating that truly individual experience.
Okay, so it's like having a personal stylist, a marketing guru, and a mind-reading shopping assistant all rolled into one. That's wild. What about virtual try-on? How is AI changing the way we shop for clothes and other products online?
This is where things get really futuristic. Virtual try-on allows you to see how clothes would look on you or how a new couch would fit in your living room, all from the comfort of your own home.
That sounds amazing. It's like taking all the guesswork out of online shopping. How does that even work?
AI algorithms analyze images of you. They take into account things like your body shape and your skin tone, and then they can combine that with images of the product you want to try on. It creates this, really realistic, almost immersive experience.
So no more ordering 3 different sizes and hoping one fits.
That's the idea. It's super helpful for items where fit and style are crucial. Things like clothing, shoes, and accessories. It takes the uncertainty out of online shopping and helps you, feel more confident about your purchases.
I can definitely see how this would be a game changer, both for like shoppers and retailers. Now, I'm kind of curious to learn more about those AI agents we talked about earlier. How are they being used in retail beyond just like helping shoppers find products?
AI agents are like, you can think of them as highly specialized assistants. They work behind the scenes tirelessly. In retail, they can automate a huge range of tasks, from monitoring competitor pricing to managing inventory. They can even predict future trends.
That sounds like having a whole team of analysts at your disposal. Can you give us like some specific examples?
Sure. Imagine an AI agent that constantly tracks prices on your competitors' websites, right?
Yeah.
And it'll alert you when there's a price drop so you can adjust your pricing strategy accordingly.
Mm.
Or you could have an AI agent that analyzes your sales data and predicts which products are going to be in high demand next season, which allows you to, optimize your inventory and avoid stockouts.
So these AI agents are basically helping retailers stay ahead of the curve, make better decisions, and ultimately boost their bottom line.
Exactly. And it's not just about like the big picture stuff. AI agents can also personalize the shopping experience for individual customers. Imagine an agent that tracks a customer's past purchases and browsing history to recommend products they're likely to love or even create a, custom shopping list based on their preferences.
That sounds super helpful, but also pretty complex. Are AI agents something that only big companies with huge budgets can afford?
Not necessarily. One of the cool trends we're seeing is the development of more affordable and user-friendly AI agent platforms. This means even small to medium-sized businesses can, use AI to streamline their operations and create better customer experiences.
That's really great news, especially for smaller businesses. Now, we've talked about how AI is being used to personalize the shopping experience and, improve operational efficiency. But what about the bigger picture? How is AI changing the way retailers manage their entire supply chains?
AI is truly a game changer for supply chain optimization. It can help retailers predict demand more accurately, optimize inventory levels, improve delivery times. It can even, help create more sustainable and ethical sourcing practices.
It sounds like AI is bringing this level of precision and foresight to retail that just, wasn't possible before. Can you walk us through some examples of how that's playing out?
Yeah. So think about demand forecasting. AI algorithms can analyze massive amounts of data sets, historical sales data, weather patterns, social media trends, even economic indicators. And they use all this to predict future demand for specific products. This helps retailers make sure they have, the right products in stock at the right time in the right location, minimizing waste and lost sales.
So no more shelves overflowing with unwanted products or those frustrating out of stock messages for customers.
Right. And AI can also optimize delivery routes. It can take into account things like real-time traffic conditions, weather, all those factors to get products to customers faster and more efficiently. And this obviously improves the customer experience, but it also helps reduce shipping costs and the environmental impact.
It's amazing to think about how AI is, streamlining every aspect of the retail journey, from the moment a customer starts browsing online to that final delivery. But with all these advancements, are there any, potential downsides or challenges that retailers need to be aware of?
Of course. I mean, with any new technology, there are always potential pitfalls. One of the biggest challenges with AI is making sure it's used responsibly and ethically. For example, if an AI model is trained on biased data, it could, perpetuate those biases in its outputs, leading to unfair or discriminatory outcomes.
So retailers need to be really careful about the data they're using to train their AI models and make sure they're not accidentally reinforcing existing biases.
Absolutely. It's crucial to have diverse data sets and to constantly monitor AI systems for potential biases. Another challenge is just, the need for specialized expertise.
Yeah.
Implementing and managing AI solutions often requires a very specific skill set, and retailers need to invest in training and development to make sure their teams are, up to speed on these new technologies.
So it's not just about adopting the technology, but it's also about creating a culture of responsible AI use, making sure everyone understands the ethical implications.
Exactly. Retailers need to be proactive in addressing these challenges to ensure that AI is used for good, that it benefits both businesses and consumers. Now, let's talk about something called domain-specific foundation models. You mentioned these briefly in the last part. What are they and why are they becoming so important for retail?
I'm all ears. From what I understand, these models are a bit more specialized than the general purpose AI we've been, discussing up to this point.
That's right. Foundation models, like those large language models we've talked about, are incredibly powerful, but they're trained on a ton of general data, which means they might not always be the best fit for, specific tasks or industries. That's where domain-specific foundation models come in.
So it's kind of like having an AI that's been specifically trained on the ins and outs of the retail world.
Precisely. These models are trained on data that's relevant to the retail industry, things like product catalogs, customer reviews, sales transactions, and market trends. This means they have a much deeper understanding of retail-specific nuances and can, generate more accurate and relevant outputs.
Okay, I'm starting to see the value here, but how do retailers actually go about creating these domain-specific models? It sounds incredibly complex.
It is a pretty technically challenging process, but the good news is that retailers don't have to, start from scratch. They can fine-tune existing foundation models with their own data, their proprietary data. This allows them to kind of, leverage the power of these pre-trained models while customizing them to fit their specific needs and business goals.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like taking a powerful engine and tweaking it to perfectly match, the specs of your custom-built car.
Yeah.
So in this segment, we've explored how generative AI is revolutionizing various aspects of the retail experience, from hyper-personalization and virtual try-on to supply chain optimization, and even the rise of, these domain-specific AI models. Before we move on to part three, is there one key takeaway you want our listener to remember about this retail transformation?
I think the most important thing to remember is that generative AI is this incredibly powerful tool that can be used to create, more personalized, efficient, and engaging shopping experiences. And it's about using AI to, enhance the human touch, not replace it.
Beautifully said. Now, in part three, we'll explore the potential challenges and opportunities that lie ahead as generative AI continues to evolve and reshape the retail landscape. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to our deep dive into generative AI and retail. I feel like we've covered so much ground already, but I'm really excited to explore what the future might hold, where all of this might be headed.
Yeah, it really is a fascinating time, to be talking about all this. The pace of innovation is, well, it's mind-blowing.
Speaking of innovation, you mentioned something in the last part about like the future of how we actually use computers. It sounded almost like science fiction. Can we maybe dig into that a little bit more?
Yeah, it might sound like something out of a movie, but the truth is it's a lot closer than you think. We're on the edge of a huge shift in how we interact with computers. Just imagine, okay, you're at work, you're trying to get something done, maybe creating a purchase order or analyzing sales data. And all you have to do is ask your AI to take it from there. Wait, you're saying that we're going to be able to just like talk to our AI and tell it what to do?
Exactly. It even goes way beyond simple voice commands, too. The AI would actually be able to see what's on your screen, understand the context of what you're working on, and then take control of your mouse and keyboard to actually get the task done.
So it's kind of like, having an AI coworker who can take care of those tedious things and free you up to focus on the stuff that really matters, the strategic thinking.
Precisely. And, it's still early days, but there are already companies that are developing AI models that can
Mhm.
interact with software, especially web browsers, in a way that's almost like how humans do it.
That's pretty incredible. The possibilities seem almost limitless. Like, just think about all those little tasks, those repetitive tasks that eat up so much time and energy.
Yeah, exactly. It has the potential to really revolutionize workflows, really boost our productivity and free up that human brain power for creative and strategic work.
Okay, but this level of AI integration does raise some questions for me. Like, what about security? Can we really trust AI to have this much control over our computers? What happens if something goes wrong?
Of course. I mean, those are really valid concerns. And developers are really working hard to make sure that these systems are secure. Security and privacy have to be the top priority when it comes to AI, especially when we're dealing with personal data or sensitive information. Any AI system that interacts with that kind of data has to be built with, strong safeguards and layers of protection.
Okay, that makes sense. That's good to hear. What about the impact on jobs? If AI can automate so many things, won't that lead to people losing their jobs? Like, is that inevitable?
Yeah, that's a question that comes up a lot, and it's important to think about it carefully.
Sure.
And, it's true that some jobs will probably be automated as AI continues to evolve, but if we look back at history, we can see that new technologies usually create new industries and jobs that we couldn't even have imagined before. I think the key is to adapt as things change.
So you're saying it's not necessarily about like mass unemployment, but more about a shift in the types of skills that we'll need.
Exactly. Think about all the new roles that will pop up as AI becomes a bigger part of our lives, like AI trainers, prompt engineers, AI ethicists. There'll be so many new possibilities. I think the key is to just stay curious, be willing to learn new skills, and, be flexible as things change.
That's a really good point. Adaptability and that willingness to learn will be so important as all this unfolds. Well, I think as we wrap up our deep dive, we should touch on the legal and ethical side of all of this. It does feel like the rules are kind of being written as we go, which can be a little bit overwhelming.
You're absolutely right. I mean, the legal and ethical stuff around AI is still being figured out.
Hmm.
Everyone's still debating it, which is why we need open and honest discussions and careful development.
Can you maybe give some specific examples of what those legal and ethical challenges might be?
Sure. One of the biggest challenges is around copyright and intellectual property. You know,
Hmm.
if AI is trained on material that's copyrighted, who owns the output that it generates? These are questions that, courts and lawmakers are still trying to figure out.
It definitely sounds like we're in a bit of a gray area, legally speaking.
Yeah, it is. We need clear rules that will protect creators and make sure AI is being used fairly. And then there's the issue of bias in AI algorithms, like we talked about earlier. If an AI model is trained on data that's biased, that bias can be reflected in the output it creates. And that can have some really harmful consequences, especially in areas like hiring or loan applications or even retail recommendations.
So it's not just about like the cool new tech, but also about making sure that this technology is used ethically and responsibly.
Yeah, exactly. We need to be having open and honest conversations about the good things and the bad things that come with generative AI. And we need rules and regulations that put fairness and transparency first.
Those are really important things to remember. Now, as we close out our deep dive, do you have any final thoughts you want to share with our listeners?
I would just say, go into this whole generative AI world with a sense of wonder and a healthy dose of critical thinking. It's a really powerful tool with the potential to completely change so many parts of our world, including the retail industry. But ultimately, it's up to us to shape how it's developed and make sure it's used for good.
That's a perfect note to end on. Thanks for joining me on this incredible journey into generative AI and retail.
It's been a pleasure, absolutely. And to everyone listening, keep exploring, stay curious, and let's see what we can create together.